I don't think I've ever done a full-blown festive slash Christmassy slash holiday illustration, and this week that's what I wanted to do. Since this is an illustration, I took it to my iPad, sketched it, and inked it there, and then decided to color it with markers after I print out the paper. This is what you're seeing is like a 30-second time-lapse of me like sketching it out and inking it, but in all reality it took me like almost 5 hours to complete, which is a very long time for myself. Usually it does not take 5 hours to sketch and ink, but because these are two characters in one drawing and it's a little bit more planned out, it definitely took up a lot of time. There were a bunch of poses I was cycling through at first too, because I was like, there's so many options, but I ended up going with this, and I actually ended up really liking their dynamic in the drawing. On the left we have my OC Nikki, which I always draw, and on the right is actually my other OC Rose, which is Nikki's twin brother. I actually haven't drawn Rose in a very long time, so this is the first time in I think like 2 years that I've actually decided to put him down on paper, because I just never get around to drawing him, and also he's kind of an ass, so like I don't feel excited to draw him because of the personality I created for him, which is, to say the least, he's not a nice person all the time, so there's also that factor. But I really should get around to drawing him more often along with the other characters in this universe, because, I mean, I need to practice how my own characters look like and just draw them in general so I can get used to them more. Like Nikki, I could draw practically with my eyes closed at this point because I draw him so often and have a lot of his features memorized, but every other person in that universe, I kind of would need to sit down and be like, okay, how does this person look like, or how would they do this, or dress, or any of that stuff. So there's that. One thing I didn't realize when I was coloring this is how much red I was actually going to be using for the entire piece, and it makes sense that I'm going to be using red for a Christmassy holiday illustration because it's a really popular color amongst these times. But as I was using it, I was like, man, why is there so much red? Like, not only in just the art, of course, but like in the holiday, what is that rooted in? What is the red and green like significance within the holidays? In general, I know that red is a really popular color, and it's not only amongst American culture and holidays, but all over the world. You'll see red widely accepted and sacred towards a lot of different cultures. But then we also have the green aspect that comes in here, which maybe because that red and green are complementary colors, which means that they're always going to go well together. But I still wanted a little bit more to the whole red and green, so I went ahead and looked it up. It turns out these colors were actually popularized by a certain artist. His name was Haddon Sunbloom, and a lot of people probably won't recognize him just from his name, but he did this drawing right here of Santa back in 1931, and every single year until like 1960 something. So for 30 years he made an image of Santa every year for Coca-Cola, and they used the same colors that were in Coca-Cola in the design of Santa. So he not only used the Coca-Cola idea for inspiration, but from then on made Santa and popularized him because of the advertisements he would make for them every single year. And now, even in 2021, soon to be 2022, we still look at Santa the exact same way. The big round guy who's jolly, wears red, has white fluff, and is next to a green Christmas tree. So all those combinations come together and make the factor of the red and green Christmas, which is actually kind of cool, especially because before that, Santa didn't look anything like he does now. The most common factor between the two is probably the white beard, and that's how everybody knows Santa's his big white beard. They both wear hats, and, well, I think that's basically it, besides carrying the bag of toys, of course. The old Santa is much skinnier, and, well, he wears robes and long dresses to kind of suit those times, because men of the older ages would kind of just wear these long robe-like things, in comparison to the Santa that's modern, who wears the kind of just pants and then sweater on top with, of course, his Santa hat. The older pictures of Santa are much more loosely based off of Saint Nick. who was apparently a very wealthy and generous bishop of Myra, which is now modern-day Turkey, and apparently would give gifts out. Once he died on, I think it was December 6th from what I was reading, they began the tradition of having somebody come out with a white beard and a long red bishop robe and giving out gifts to children if they were good, and coal or nothing to children who were bad or misbehaved. In specific, that Santa would come out on December 5th at night, and he would put the gifts into boots, which is, I'm guessing, where the idea of stockings came from, and putting gifts in the stocking, which is kind of cool that that's, like, done today, but I don't think anybody actually ever sees the significance of why it's done. That being said, it doesn't mean that there are different Santas in different countries and that they do different things. Some of them have different storylines, I guess you could say, in comparison to the one that we know the most here in America. And honestly, they're all kind of cool because it kind of shows where each country and culture takes the holiday and sees, like, how they explain it and then celebrate it. And even within those cultures, there are different ways that you get punished for being bad or misbehaving. So here, the supposed story is you get coal or nothing, which I don't know if parents actually do give their kids nothing on Christmas. That sounds kind of mean. Maybe give them something that I guess isn't as grand or extravagant because of their behavior, but I don't know. I guess it's Christmas, like, why not give them something fun, and then discipline them later, whatever. Well, I'm not a parent, so I can't say anything. I'm probably just too soft. Whatever. Anyway, so some places believe that even though Santa's really good and he brings you some great gifts, if you're really bad, there are some really bad implications to that. Some of them would even tell stories of a Santa bringing someone with him to eat misbehaving children, or put them in a sack and bring them to a black forest, and even so much as just beating the children if they were bad. So there are a bunch of different stories attached to Santa, and honestly, the one that we got here is kind of the least terrifying. You just kind of don't get anything you want, which is, yeah, it sucks, but I'd rather have that than be put into a sack and dragged into a black forest. And especially with that whole idea as a kid, you're like, wow, that must be terrifying. I mean, as an adult, that idea is terrifying. Like, if Santa just came, put me in a sack, and then dragged me into the middle of nowhere, I think I'd be pooping my pants, bro. Like, I don't know what I would do there. That's an L if I've ever seen one. I do want to add that the idea of Santa, including the way he looks, but not the popularized one, was apparently first, like, established when the poem "Twas the Night Before Christmas" came out in, like, 1880 something. So that idea was, like, solidified there around that time towards the beginning of the 19th century, and it's just continued on since then as well. The poem explains that Santa was dressed in all fur and would have a bag of toys on his back, along with the fact that he was very merry, red cheeks and a red nose, and that he had a really big stomach, and that he apparently also smoked a pipe and had a really round belly. So all those came together to kind of help define what we know Santa as now, even down to the sleigh and the reindeer, which is how he would get to your house, was all kind of established in this poem. Afterwards, it took maybe 30-40 years for it to get popularized by Sunbloom with his art, and now after doing all that research, it's kind of crazy to see how the evolution of the red and green Christmas and Santa has all kind of come together. And one of the nicest parts about it is honestly that an artist really made an impact on the entire world, especially in America because that's where he was mostly based. But honestly, that's kind of cool that you have somebody who took their art and their designs and they made it a staple around everywhere. So we all know who Santa is just by looking at him because of the way Sunbloom drew them. And it's awesome because it really does show the importance and the historical, like, significance of art and where it brings us and it's something awesome. I would have never expected to actually look all that stuff up and learn all about this, but I did, and it's actually extremely interesting. And honestly, learning about any holiday in general is really interesting because of the sole fact that we're all so different in our cultures and in the way we celebrate and do things. So that was actually pretty fun. Just to talk about the drawing real quick, it was really fun to draw too. I think me doing something that's a little bit more meaty in terms of details and composition, along with just the design of it all, was not only overwhelming, but a nice challenge, and it was super fun, and I really love the outcome. It's probably one of my favorite illustrations that I've done of all time, just because of how hard I worked on it and how happy I came out with the result. I don't know who I like more in the drawing, though. I honestly really like both of them. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.